Have you ever wondered why so often you find people in the business of being the morality police being caught doing things that by their own light, in their own lights, are immoral, right? The guy who wants to ban or eliminate gay marriage is caught in the airport bathroom with a guy. The person who talks ad nauseum about family values is, also has an open marriage. Or even, the environmentalist celebrity who flies around on a private jet with an enormous carbon footprint. We see this a lot. There is deep hypocrisy in this. What I want to ask today is, why does it happen so often? And I'm not sure I have a single answer to it, but let's sort of feel our way through the issue. So, okay, first thought. I'm always a little wary when we make a claim like this that we're not falling prey to a selection bias. What do I mean? Well, there are certain kinds of phenomena where we notice when it happens because it's unusual or important or both, and we don't really notice or pay attention to when it doesn't happen. So for example, some politician ends his or her life without a scandal. You don't have a separate story about politician without a scandal. Now, perhaps a scandal-free or at least a corruption-free politician is so rare that it is worthy of a story, but the point is that you don't take notice of what's not there. You take notice of what's there. And so when there is a scandal, when you do have this minister caught doing XYZ or this Republican senator doing ABC, you take notice of it. So we should, I think, be a little cautious that we're not sort of only noticing the hits and not noticing the misses, right? It's easy to fall prey to that kind of bias in statistical kind of bias in our thought. All right, but leaving that aside, it still might strike us as unusual that there are people who are such vociferous advocates and of certain kinds of oppressive on you morality who don't practice what they preach. Why do you see that? I mean, if they really are zealous, wouldn't you expect that zeal comes from a kind of legitimate belief in what they are preaching, A, and then B, if they have that legitimate belief in what they're preaching, why aren't they practicing it? One explanation is the kind of cynical one. And the cynical explanation says that the conservative politician, the evangelical pastor, they don't really deep down believe any of this crap. They believe that the people who listen to them are chumps. They think they can get elected on this platform. They think they can get donations on this. They don't think the world is about to end. At least that's not what the new yacht they bought in Barbados suggests. They just think that you believe it and that you'll shell out dollars for their feed bags of food for your shelter or something. Okay, I'm sure that is true in a large number of cases. You have your Elmore Gantries, you have your charlatans. That's the case. But there are a lot of these people, I think, who that's not the full story. Either there is some way that even the kind of hypocrites often, I think, do in some way believe what they're saying, even though they're hypocrites. And you might say, well, why? How can you even say a hypocrite believes what they believe? I think the answer is yes, if what they believe is the kind of thing that you can't be consistent about. So there are certain kinds of moral codes, certain kinds of belief systems that are irrational, that are badly formulated, that conflict with various aspects of human beings and our biological, psychological, social needs. And those kinds of theories, those kinds of political systems, those kinds of rules, they can't be practiced consistently, or at any rate, the more consistently you practice them, the more incredible misery and destruction you bring upon yourself and others. So, for example, it's not the case that you can just tell human beings all sex is bad, and you can just expect human beings with their sex drive, which is the explanation of how just about every one of them got here in the first place, that to just expect it to stop. Even the people who are going around telling you this, you can't really expect it to always stop with them, for them. Or to take a kind of socialist or communist system. They never show a kind of equality of wealth among everybody. You still have your party members who live lives vastly better than the average member of the proletariat, even though they've been supposedly handed the power, right? You still have the haves and have-nots, only now the haves are party apparatchiks and the have-nots are everybody else who doesn't hold the whip. You just can't have this perfect egalitarian fantasy that they imagine, right? People say, well, it's a good theory. It's good in theory. It's bad in practice. What kind of theory is good that you can imagine it and it could never actually happen, not even close? So if you have people who have these kinds of moral political theories and they either can't be practiced on earth or can't be practiced without enormous suffering on their part, on other people's part, the default, the to be expected, is that they will screw up, is that they will not consistently follow this. Sometimes I think what psychologically drives some of the most outspoken hellfire declaring zealots is their own guilt at their own nature under these morals that they've internalized, right? How many people, say conservative Christians, who feel deeply guilty, ashamed, hate themselves for being gay, try to sort of excise that demon or kind of buy back credit with God by punishing people who are gay? How much of that is just an attempt to try to trick themselves, to fool themselves into believing that I can't really be gay because I'm totally against gay marriage? Only they're not, they may still be gay and will still have all the sexual urges. And then if they believe in a certain kind of Christian theory of punishment and guilt and forgiveness, they might say, okay, I've sinned again because I'm human, I sin, I'll seek forgiveness for that. But meanwhile, I'm doing the Lord's work. So again, I'm not sure if I have a single answer to this, but I do think that part of it, I do think there's a limitation to the kind of cynical thing, that none of these people believe it at all. Because I think some of them do. And on the other hand, I think that them believing in it does not preclude or even make less likely the fact that they'll be hypocrites. I think it makes it more likely. And I'll bring up one more point. There's a discussion in John Locke's essay concerning human understanding, book 4, chapter 19. It's called On Enthusiasm. And like by enthusiasm, he doesn't mean like what you're supposed to get at the pep rally. Enthusiasm was the word in his day for religious fundamentalism. Enthusiasts, as Locke sees it, or as he uses the word, are people who think they hear the voice of God and are inspired by that. And in the process of kind of believing whatever they want to believe, because they think whatever they want to believe is put into them by God, they become violent. They become oppressive. You might think, why? Why can't these, religious, fervent people just kind of mind their own business? And Locke says, well, here's the thing. Somebody who doesn't bother to make a good case to themselves, someone who doesn't respect their own mind, is certainly not likely to respect yours. Another way to put it is the person who has sort of started out by warping their own perspective, by believing in this irrational thing, is more likely to be irrational, is more likely to be irrational with you. Someone who is irrational is also more likely to be inconsistent because irrational things can't be practiced consistently and because they tend, more often than not, to be held by people who are inconsistent. So that's my take on this issue today.